Because I'm seeing people saying that Clay's been fine. Clay's been fine this year on defense. I don't know if I agree with that. All right, thank you. I just wanted to get a gauge.
Well, we can't get any clarity on that. I don't think it's fair. Once again, I don't think it's fair when you're constantly throwing out four guard lineups. Oh, he's being bad on defense. Like nobody's playing well on defense when you throw those lineups out there. Did we not just talk about how the last two games from the
I
August
don't
all
blame
played?
him. Yeah,
Right, Trey?
I don't blame him if it's a mismatch. I don't blame him. Like if he's guarding Cat, I don't blame him. But like even last night, bro, he was just getting fried. Like he wasn't guarding Chet. I mean, he
I'm
was
gonna tell
guarding
you right.
yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right now. Once I saw that they were starting Saric and Kuminga together, I was like, they're not winning this game. You know, I went into that game. We had a discussion about how we felt about that game, right? We thought it was going to be competitive. We thought that they had the pieces to compete. And we talked about how the defense was connected the previous game against the Timberwolves and how it was close and they almost won that game because their defense was connected. And then, of course, the very next game, Steve completely goes to a disconnected defensive lineup and then disconnects it throughout the course of the game, running a bunch of four guard lineups. He plays Kojo. He puts Kojo into the rotation over TJD. Not only that, he plays Kojo over Moody in the first quarter. So what are we talking about? He put out a lineup of Kojo, Pod, Clay, and GP2. Four guard lineup. What are we talking about? How can we talk about the concern of Clay's defense when the coach is putting out these lineups? Pods was minus 28 last night. Is he a minus 28 player? Are we going to blame him because they didn't look good out there in that lineup, in a bunch of these lineups where it makes him look bad, it makes Kojo look bad, it makes everybody look bad? We literally just talked about how when the starters were all available in their last two games, they were plus 2.5. So obviously Clay's not doing that bad of a job when he's in the right kind of lineups. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't call his defense fine, but I think Steve has a lot to do with it too. So I'm not going to just blame the players at this point. You have to look at Steve as well. So I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I think that's fair to say. But I think Steve, you have to look at him and say, you got to set these guys up for success, because I agree with you. He hasn't done that. And that, to me, at least when you look at the larger sample size, right? If you point to a game or two, you can maybe say the players should have played better or whatever. But you look at across the first 13 games of the season, there is an argument that like Steve can't force Clay to make shots, or Steve can't force Wiggins to make shots. Like that I get, that's fair, and I agree with that. But the rotations, the lineups, the four guard lineups, the small lineups, the lineups without defensive anchors, like that stuff, how do I defend that?
He's handicapping the team.
Yeah.
And he's talking about after the game, he takes no accountability, and he talks about the players had a lack of grit issue. And meanwhile, you're putting out four guard lineups. You're literally putting guys that are incapable of physically doing the things that are necessary at the power forward position or even the small forward position when you're going tiny in these lineups. And then even at the 1 and 2, you're just tiny across the board. And then you talk about grit. You're telling me these guys didn't fight in this game? They fought. They fought and did everything they could to overcome the deficits that Steve Kerr created on his own. What are these reporters like? Are they watching these games with any kind of trained eye whatsoever? And if you are, how are you not challenging him and asking him why? Well, you want them to show grit, but you're putting GP at power forward or Clay at power forward. How are they going to show grit when you're capping your own team in this kind of manner? These are all just manufactured problems that Kerr is creating. We all expected TJD to play, and he didn't play a single minute in any of the actual rotational minutes. He came in garbage time. So this isn't just malpractice. This is sabotage. And Kerr takes no accountability for it. You know, I've been just relatively chill. I blame him, but I haven't been like fire him or like something like this, but I've had it. This guy is hurting everybody's careers, everybody's money, everybody's potential. So I had a brief conversation last night with Lindell, and he asked me a question. What do you think is, with all the things that are involved in the job of coaching, what do you think is the most important thing that a coach has to do? And I would be interested in hearing your answers to that as well. But for me, first and foremost, It's to maximize all the guys that are on your roster, and especially maximize all the guys that are in rotation. By maximize, I mean put them in position to succeed, to allow them the opportunity to show the best version of themselves. And that, first and foremost, and this is like the most basic thing ever, is to play the guys in the right positions. So to me, that's the most important thing a coach can do, is to bring out the best in the pieces that you have, because you have to manage talent. And talent in the NBA, when I say talent, included in that is the effort level of players. That's a talent too, because a lot of players don't have that, the intangibles and these kinds of things. And if you're a coach, like, you're able to bring certain things like that out of a player one way or another, inspire them or motivate them to be great, whether it's offense or defense. And when the players continuously show no signs of doing so, or if they do, you punish them by sitting them or not playing them, how are you putting these players in the best position to succeed? Even with a guy like Steph Curry, he curtails and limits his full potential. He's constantly yanking him out of the lineup when the guy is on fire. The way he plays his minutes is all screwy. The way he uses him in the offense is all screwy. He uses the greatest offensive weapon in NBA history, like a glorified JJ Redick, as if he is not capable of creating utter magic when the ball is in his hands. Because a guy like JJ Redick has no handle, and he has to run around in a bunch of circles to get open. And yeah, that creates some interesting things along the way, but that's nothing compared to the things that Steph can do on the ball. But Kerr, who does he maximize, and who does he improve, and who does he get the best out of any of the players that he has? All he has done is diminish them, make them look worse than they are, by putting them in these foul, nonsensical lineups that cannot defend. And then he talks about their lack of grit. But what are we talking about? So I'd like to ask you guys, Manu and Dre, what do you guys think is like the most important job of a coach? And then ask yourself, is he doing any of those things? Manu, go ahead, and then Dre.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, obviously the most important is, from a large scale level, right, is to win, and to maximize our chances of winning through the use of the way he plays his players and the sets that he runs, and kind of a combination of all of that. And to answer your question, if he's doing a good job with that, I wouldn't say so, just because there are so many unfavorable lineups that are on the floor time and time again throughout this season, where we, maybe not last game in particular, but where we lacked a lot of, actually no, this game in particular as well, with the 4-guard lineup. We saw in the 3.5 minutes, the 4-guard lineup of Kojo, Pods, GP, and Clay were on the floor. The Warriors were outscored by 9, and they shot an effective 11%, while OKC shot effective 100%. Where a lot of these just don't work, and we've been saying this time and time again as well. This isn't just from within the fan base, other fan bases saying, what the hell is he doing? Like, why is he playing 4 guards? There's literally, like, a lot of the time, there are like 3 players on the court, 6'4" or shorter, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Just the way that players, I feel like, are being utilized isn't necessarily maximized, and because of that, I mean, obviously part of it is also right due to Clay and Wiggs also being cold. That's definitely one of the other things, but just not being able to kind of get the rest rolling is insane. So I just don't like the job he's doing, especially this season. So
good answer. That's a good answer. Dre, go ahead. What do you think is the most important job of a coach?
To set his players up for success with whatever resources he has. So obviously the GM is supposed to construct the roster, and he puts all the players together, but the coach is supposed to implement schemes on either end, whether it be defense, offense. The coach's job is to define the identity of the team and then make sure that they lean into it. And I don't feel like any of those things have been accomplished. So yeah, like when I look at like issues this team has, the patterns, the lack of an identity, I'm looking at Steve with that. So
Absolutely.
It's just the reality is that look at the best teams in the league, right? You look at Boston, they're elite on both ends. You look at Denver, they're elite on both ends. Now, can you say that we may not have the personnel those teams have? Or can you guys say that, like, oh, maybe we're more limited our roster, we have less size, all that, cool. But I think we can all agree that, like, maybe we don't have what they have from, like a style standpoint. Maybe we can't exactly play like them, right? Because we don't have a stretch 4 like Porzingis, or a stretch 4, or stretch 5 like Al Horford. Maybe we don't have a guy like Jokic at the 5 that can make plays like that, or a play finisher, or you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't. Maybe our roster's more limited in some areas, which I agree with, the front court personnel. But here's the thing: you can't tell me that Steve has maximized the roster, because guys like TJD, who we've seen be a positive, guys like Moses Moody, who we've seen be a positive, like, these guys aren't playing, bro. And he's deciding to play guys like Corey Joseph, who I don't think Kojo, I think we can all agree, like, Kojo doesn't add anything to our identity, our team identity. Or at least I don't see a vision. Where's the vision, right? With Kerr, the coach is supposed to present a vision. I don't know what that vision is, so.
Well, whatever the identity the Warriors have an opportunity to have, Kerr is breaking it by bringing in a guy like Kojo into the equation and taking away other guys' minutes that actually need to play. This is not a matter of preference. This is just a matter of getting the sizes correct. And this is the things that we're talking about are the most basic things. The most basic things, like not playing a tiny guy at the 4, right? Even when you play somewhat reasonably sized guys at the 4, is not good enough. Like Wiggins at the 4 is not good enough, and Kuminga at the 4 is not good enough. But then you're doubling down and going even smaller. This is your solution. And if you're gonna go that small, there better be something really sick, certain individuals that make your offense so good, right? So good that it's actually worth doing, because you're scoring, at the very least, you're scoring every time. But is that happening? They shot 41% from the field. Nobody's creating anything for each other. Nobody's creating any advantage. And then you have a bunch of small guys. You set a screen for each other. What do you think is going to happen? There's no advantage there, because all the other team's defense has to do is switch that, because there's no disadvantage of switching against a bunch of small guys. It's harder to switch when when a big guy is setting a screen, and then you can't stick a small guy on the bigger guy. That's the advantage of a bigger guy setting a screen for you. Not to mention that a big guy screening for you makes way more space for the guy coming off a curl, coming off a screen, whatever. So they have no advantage. They have no going downhill ability. So they're getting no efficient shots whatsoever. They're getting no easy points in the paint, and so no advantage offensively. So then what? Why are you doing that? You think about, there was a report today that Russell Westbrook volunteered to come off the bench, and this whole Russell Westbrook and James Harden and Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, they all need the ball. It's like redundant talent, and without like other pieces doing other things. Ty Lue is an idiot. He's like a Steve Kerr merchant or something, because he just keeps going. He also keeps playing like these small ass lineups, and you see what's going on with the Clippers too, right? But at the very least, Ty Lue, these guys are super talented issue, right? Like Russell Westbrook, all-time point guard. James Harden, all-time shooting guard of this era. Paul George, like once upon a time franchise level player. You know what I'm saying? At least they have strong background for why it's harder to like sit one of these guys or something, even though you still should. But Steve is sticking Kojo in there. Corey Joseph. In the case of his fit with this team, he is a 4th string point guard. Even with Curry out, he's still a 3rd string point guard with Potts in there. So why are you sacrificing everything to get this guy into the lineup to play a 4-guard lineup? What is the logic there? Why is nobody asking these questions? When you guys talk about coaching, first of all, there are schemes. There's a way that you play the game of basketball. There's a way that you play defense. There's all types of different defenses. There's different types of zones. There's different ways to play screens, right? You can ice a screen. You can switch a screen. You can do a lot of different things. You can drop on a screen. You can play box and one. And then there's isolation defense. There's all kinds of defense. There's different schemes, both offensively and defensively, and these are important, absolutely. But there's something 2, 3, 4 times more important than those schemes. And it's who you use to execute those schemes. And this coaching staff, Steve Kerr and the rest of the coaches, don't seem to have any idea that if you put a bunch of guys that are incapable of executing these things, both offensively and defensively, then your schemes are worthless. Your schemes are garbage because you're putting out a bunch of guys that can't execute these things. So where they prioritize the importance of things when they run this stuff, it's just completely out of order. To be honest with you, if they hired me to be like a defensive coordinator or defensive specialist, or just at the very least like an analyst to tell them these things, because they don't seem to have the common sense to understand that this is the primary reason why things are not working. And this shouldn't be the case. These people are getting paid millions of dollars to understand these basic things. And they clearly don't, because they keep doing the same things. Steph literally criticized them, stop doing the same thing over and expect different results, but they keep doing it anyway. So at this point, and I've been talking about Steve Kerr forever. I talked about him this year. I talked about him last year. I talked about him the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. So I've been talking about him since he put Ezeli into a Game 7 where the guy is shaking in his boots, can't even catch a pass when he's wide open because he's that petrified. And then he's putting like combinations of Ezeli and Varejao, and you're running like an 11-man lineup in a Game 7. Once I saw that, I was like, is this guy out of his mind? Does he not understand how these things work? And none of these things have been figured out throughout the course of his time with the Warriors. Everything the Warriors have done in the playoffs, they've done despite Steve and have overcome a lot of the things that he did. Kevin Durant, there's a literal article that says Kevin Durant rips into the motion offense. No lie. Go look it up. The guy is literally ripping into the system that his coach is using in the playoffs because he knows that shit doesn't work. If you guys think it's just me, you're not paying attention. And then just the very fact that Steph, while he was healthy, is talking about pick and roll. He's like, yeah, I think we can use more pick and rolls to change things up. He's not challenging the players when he says these things. He's challenging the coaching staff, guys. The problem here is that Steve did this stuff last year in the playoffs. He ran a 4-guard lineup against the Lakers. And defensively, everything was just broken. Right? Jordan Poole was a cone. He just kept leaving him out there, out to dry anyway. No adjustments. The fact that this is happening again, it's not new. Which tells me that this guy's incapable of change. This guy is incapable of saying, my ideologies, my ideas, they have failed. They are not working. These were mistakes, and I need to rectify them. He doesn't say any of these things to the media, and he doesn't say any of these things. He doesn't show them with any action that he's going to change things up. And he was even willing to do it in world competition. So you have a literal charlatan on your team masquerading as a coach and pretending that he knows something. The guy knows absolutely nothing. You guys think I'm being harsh towards him and all this kind of stuff, but you got to realize, man, and when you hear me talk, I don't talk like this about anybody. I don't talk like this about anybody. I'm not this kind of person. I'm like this because this guy is compromising players' careers, legacies, money, everything. He's compromising the actual potential of this team, and he's hurting this franchise in a way that you want to believe, man. You know, he's really hurting the career of Moses Moody. He's hurting the career of Kuminga. He's hurting the career of TJD. TJD's been playing amazing, and then the guy sticks TJD. The game is over against the Pistons. There's less than a minute left, and then you stick TJD in there for 30 seconds and completely destroy his stats. And you guys think like, oh, the stats don't matter, but for these players, that's their career that you're talking about, that you're being very careless about. And you know, as a casual fan, that's fine. You don't have to care. But I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the coach should care about that. The coach is supposed to enhance these players and get them paid, right? These are also factors of being a manager and being a coach of these individuals. And he's not doing those things. And so when I see this one individual who's making all these terrible decisions that are just hurting so many players across the board, that doesn't sit well with me. I think this guy's a clown. And I think this guy is he's just duping everybody into believing he's some kind of maestro. And I've had it. If you guys want to win a championship, you guys want this 4-guard lineup stuff to stop, you guys want the Warriors to be good on defense again, then you need to get this guy out of here, because he is not your answer. You go into the playoffs with this guy, I'm done. I have no belief that this guy is gonna, especially with no Mike Brown by his side, I've seen no evidence that this guy is capable of anything. He will find a way to make them worse, and he will find a way to sabotage them, intentionally or unintentionally. This guy gotta go. He's gotta be fired. Somebody else has to take over. If they do Kenny Atkinson interim, I think even that, he will do much better than Steve Kerr. And at the same time, there are many options in terms of like coach availability. Even a guy like Nate McMillan would kill it. You guys have to remember, 15-16 season, Steve Kerr missed half the year because of spine issues, complications from his surgery from the year before. And Luke Walton took over. Luke Walton is a mediocre coach. He went to he went to other teams basically and tried to coach them, and he looked like a mediocre coach. So we're talking about a mediocre coach in Luke Walton who took over for Steve Kerr and proceeded to go 39-4 when you gave him Steph Curry and other talents. So even if you put a mediocre guy who knows the basics, this team can tear it up. But if you give them a defensive-minded, hard-nosed coach like a Mike Brown or a Nate McMillan, I mean, they will murder. A Nate McMillan or a Mike Brown would never go with these stupid-ass lineups that he knows are hurting their defense when he has better options. So there's a plethora of options that could elevate this team like you wouldn't believe. Like, you think right now this team looks like shit. Their roster is, and they all look terrible, but they have pieces. They actually have just about everything that they need outside of the stretch 4. And in the regular season, they don't necessarily even need that stretch 4 to win a majority of these games. They should actually be dominating right now. You have Steph Curry on your team, and he is just look at what he's doing. Even with no help in the starting lineup and all these troubles, like, look what he's doing. Okay? Now imagine if you have a coach that puts proper lineups out there. That alone will solve a lot of these problems. We're being literally handicapped constantly, quarter by quarter, for various segments of each game, each quarter, where their defense is just broke. And you expect to win these games. It's hard to win when you're constantly being handicapped by your own coach. And then you have to fight the refs on top of that. These refs are it's constant terrible calls, basically, game after game after game. Warriors are getting screwed left and right in this Nike league. So they have to overcome that. And then they have to overcome Steve. Like, come on. It's too much.